There's a battle going on in real estate right now, and if you've been anywhere near the headlines, you've felt it. Portals against the MLS, brokerages against the portals, mergers, private listings, who controls the data, who controls the buyer, who gets to set the rules for the next 20 years. Someone called it a giant chessboard, and that's about right. Everyone with size and capital is jockeying for position, moving pieces, protecting their squares. There are just two figures on that board nobody seems to be playing for. One is the agent, the person who actually sits down at the kitchen table with the people buying and selling homes. The other is the consumer sitting across from them, the widow selling the house alone for the first time, the young couple with their whole life ahead of them, the parents downsizing out of the home where they raise their kids. At no time in my career have both of those people felt more like pawns than right now. Start with the consumer, because they didn't ask for any of this. They came to buy or sell a home, maybe the biggest financial decision of their life, and they walked into the middle of a war they don't understand and never enlisted in. The rules changed since the last time they did this. The forms multiplied. Now there's a fight over where their listing can even appear, and a dozen voices telling them what choice means, each with something to gain. They just wanted to sell the house. Instead, they're a piece on someone else's board, and they don't even know the game is being played. Then there's the agent across the table. And here's the part that should bother you. For years, this industry has told agents the same thing over and over. You are the brand. The consumer doesn't care about the brokerage anymore. They care about the person. They buy the person. And it's true. The relationship is the asset. The trust is the asset. The face across the table is the asset. So consider who's doing that work. The agent is the one building the brand, creating the awareness, trying to get seen, now by AI as much as by anyone. Competing for the appointment, then the signature, then sitting down to explain to a buyer that yes, the rules changed, yes, you may be on the hook for my fee, and here's why I'm worth it. We do that every day. And then we wake up the next morning, in essence unemployed again, trying to figure out where the next bit of income comes from, whether the deals on the table will actually settle, where the next opportunity is. That's the real life of the person helping you with the largest asset you own. You don't see it. We carry it so you don't have to. And all that face-to-face work, all those relationships, all those kitchen tables, that's where the business actually gets secured. That's where the revenue is generated. The revenue that then flows up through the entire chain to the brokerage and every party riding along, most of whom have nowhere near the sales skills the agents do, but benefit from their work all the same. So you'd think these two, the agent and the consumer, the two people in the room where the actual transaction happens, would be at the center of this conversation. The most consulted, the most protected. Instead, they're the most exposed and the least asked. Whatever gets decided up on the chessboard, every strategy, every new rule, every fallout from every lawsuit, every shift in the market, these two are the ones who have to live it, at the table the next morning. The players move the pieces. The pawns do the work and carry the weight and never get asked. This is a piece about that table, about the two people sitting at it, on both sides of the same decision, and what's being lost while the game goes on above their heads. Underneath all of it is the velocity, the sheer rate of change. Human beings are built to handle change. Adapting is one of our strengths. But there's a limit to how much anyone can absorb at once, and we blew past it. When disruption arrives at a pace nobody has lived through before, it stops being something you adapt to and becomes something you try to survive. That's true for the agent. It's just as true for you. Neither of you is weak for feeling buried. The ground genuinely moved faster than people are built to track. Look at how the dominoes fell. We've been short on housing for almost a decade, ever since the financial crisis cut construction below what a growing population needed. Then COVID changed the nature of work itself. When the job could come to you, people stopped moving and turnover dropped. Boomers living longer stayed put. The inventory that was already tight got tighter. Then rates were slashed and homes became affordable. Not because prices were low, but because payments were, and people bought at a frenzy. Then inflation roared back for the first time in 15 years. Rates spiked and affordability collapsed. Most of that swing happened inside about 24 months. That's not a market cycle. That's whiplash. And it wasn't done. On top of it came the NAR settlement, a fundamental change in how agents and clients establish a relationship, how agency works, how fees are structured, landing while the market was still heaving. Then the fight over the MLS itself. Then the push to privatize listings, with brokerages, portals, and the MLS all jockeying for control. And then, on top of all of it, AI. Changing how data is found, how it's analyzed, how you get answered. Now put the two people back at the table in the middle of that. The agent is trying to explain how it all works while not being entirely sure themselves, because some of it was designed above their heads. And you're just trying to sell your house. Handed strategies, forms, disclosures, agreements, and a choice about where to put your home, with no real way to evaluate any of it. So you do the only thing left. You trust the agent and hope they're a little less lost than you are. And it never resolves, because it never stops. By the time anyone settles in enough to understand where things stand, they've changed again. There is no status quo to return to. Step back from the chessboard and look at who's actually in the chair. Not the categories, the people. There's the couple downsizing, 25 years in the house. They raised their family in it, and the marks measuring the kids are still on the doorframe. Most of what they're worth is in this one asset, and they know it. It's the quiet pressure under every decision. The last time they sat on this side of a closing table was a quarter century ago, when it was a fraction this complicated. A handful of forms, no decoupled commissions, no buyer agency agreement to sign before anyone would show them a home. None of this shadow of liability over every signature. Smart, capable people who have done this before. And the version of this they did barely resembles what's in front of them now. There's the young couple in the apartment, their whole life ahead of them, making this decision together the way you make the big ones. Half excitement, half quiet terror. The largest thing they've ever committed to, and they don't fully understand the process because they've never done it. They're trusting because they have to be. They don't yet know what they don't know. And there's the widow, selling alone for the first time. For decades there were two of them. Now there's one, and the absence is in the room. She's getting input from her kids, from friends, all of it well-meant, not all of it agreeing. Across from her is an agent who has to take the strategies, the forms, the disclosures, the part of the industry that now sits so far above anyone's ordinary understanding, and somehow make it make sense. Gently. At a moment when nothing in her life feels steady. These are the people. Not consumers. Not the sell side. A couple closing a chapter. A couple opening one. A woman doing alone what she always did with someone. They didn't come for a revolution in how real estate works. They came to make one of the most important decisions of their lives, hoping someone would help them do it well. What none of them can see is everything we just walked through. The velocity, the data war, the chessboard. They're not supposed to see it, but it's pressing on their decision all the same, shaping the options they're handed, whether they know it or not. Now look at the same table from the other chair. The agent carries something the consumer can't see and would never be asked to. They woke up that morning, like every morning in this business, essentially unemployed. Not knowing where the next income comes from, whether the deals in motion will close, where the next opportunity is. They carry it quietly because the person across the table needs them steady. You don't bring your own uncertainty to someone drowning in theirs. And on top of that private weight, the job has quietly become something new. The agent is now the translator-in-chief for an industry that has outrun its own ability to explain itself. They have to take the velocity, the forms, the decoupled fees, the fight over where a listing can even go, and turn it into plain, calm guidance for someone making the biggest decision of their life, while not being entirely sure of it themselves. That's the real position of the person helping you buy or sell your home. Underemployed by the day, asked to be the steady expert on a system that changes faster than anyone can master. Expected to absorb your fear without ever showing their own. Not a complaint, just the job. It's the one nobody else on the chessboard has to do, least of all the ones moving the pieces. And not one of them could do it if you traded places and sat them at that table. They know the board, they don't know the kitchen table. And it's worth saying who depends on that job getting done. Every relationship the agent builds, every table they sit at, is where the business is actually secured. Where the revenue gets generated that flows up through the whole chain to the brokerage and every party riding above them. Most with nowhere near the sales skills the agents have, all benefiting from their work. The two people at that table are doing the thing the entire industry is built on top of. And they're the two with the least say in how it's run. Sit at enough kitchen tables and you notice something about the paperwork. It keeps growing, and almost none of the growth is for the person signing it. Most of it exists because somewhere, someone went to court, said there hadn't been enough disclosure, and won. So another form was added. Then another lawsuit, another form. It never shrinks. A form added after some long-forgotten lawsuit is a form forever. The danger passes, the paperwork fossilizes, and the stack only ever grows. Every layer protects someone further up the chain than the two people at the table. And the agent is the one who has to carry it across to you. Slide each page over, explain it, and ask you to sign, knowing you're mostly trusting that someone in this process is looking out for you. Which is the question the rest of this comes down to. In a system this fast, this complicated, this weighted toward protecting everyone but the two people at the table, who is looking out for you? And how would you even know? To see what's at stake, it helps to know what the MLS is, because almost no one outside the business does. It started as cooperation. Long before the internet, brokers made a deal with each other. I'll share my listings with you, you share yours with me, and will both put every home in front of as many buyers as possible. Out of that, the seller got exposure to every broker's buyers. The buyer could finally see the whole market in one place, and a real marketplace came into being. It was never a bureaucracy. It was brokers agreeing that an open, shared market served everyone better than 100 private ones. And an open market was never only about price. It was about access. Who gets to see what's for sale? And the history of this industry is not reassuring on that question. The president of NERB has made that case directly, that for the first 70 years of organized real estate, there was a list some people simply could not get onto, and that walling listings off today can quietly recreate the structure of that exclusion. That argument deserves its own treatment, and it's coming. But it belongs here too, as a reminder of what open was always for. Here's the part worth knowing, because the consequence lands on you. The valuable thing is the assembled listing, the description, the photos, the record of the home. And that is typically created, controlled, and submitted by the broker under MLS rules. The seller owns the house. The listing record is the broker's work, held in a cooperative under rules everyone agreed to. So when you hear that sellers should control their own data, it's worth knowing the listing data was never really the seller's to begin with. Seller control is, very often, broker control wearing a friendlier name. So why does any of this matter to the widow or the young couple, who've never heard the letters MLS and never need to? Because of what's happening to the truth. The cooperative is still the most accurate, current, governed record of what a home actually is. But you don't go there. You go to Zillow, or Redfin, or now an AI. And those places increasingly don't agree with each other. A different valuation, different details, different taxes on every one. And you pick the one you like, or the one that sounds surest. When an AI answers, it's often working from data that didn't come from the governed record at all, or came from it and then got massaged, summarized, sometimes invented. And people assume that because an AI said it, it's true. The most overwhelmed buyer in history, making the largest decision of their life, is handed confident answers that may be quietly wrong, with no way to tell. This is the moment that record was built for. The technology exists right now for it to feed the true, current data straight to these AI systems, so that what you get back is accurate instead of a hallucination dressed up as fact. The institution created to make the market honest could be the thing that keeps it honest in the AI era. Whether it moves fast enough to do that, against 500 separate fiefdoms, regulators, and corporations that benefit from there being no single source of truth, is the open question. What it should do is return to its founding purpose. Make all of it available, openly and fairly, so the seller gets exposure and the buyer sees the whole market in one honest place. That purpose is needed more in the AI era, not less. Because the alternative is a fractured market, where the truth depends on which app you opened, and the two people at the table have no way to know which answer was real. When the industry defends pulling listings out of the open market and into private channels, it reaches for one word, and it's a good one: choice. The seller's choice. Sellers own their homes, the argument goes, so sellers should decide how and where they're marketed. Who could argue with that? Nobody, in principle. You absolutely should decide. It falls apart on the word informed, because choice without it is just a signature on someone else's strategy. A real choice means you were shown the options, understood the trade-offs, and decided for yourself. Now put that standard back at the table. You're the downsizing couple who last did this a quarter century ago, or the widow doing it alone, or the young buyers who've never done it at all. Already underwater in velocity and forms and a war you didn't know was being fought. Are you really positioned to weigh the long-term consequences of keeping your home off the open market versus putting it on? To price what it costs you in buyers who'll never see it, in a sale you'll never be able to measure against the road not taken? You're not. And it's no knock on you. Nobody in that state could be. But here's what makes it worse than it sounds. You don't experience it as giving up the decision. You never say, "You decide for me." You feel like you're choosing the whole way through, because choices are exactly what's being put in front of you. Sign here, initial this, on the market or off, this network or that one. A steady stream of options, each one presented as yours to make. And when a person is handed more decisions than they can evaluate, at a pace they can't absorb, about a subject they were never equipped to judge, the appearance of choosing and the act of choosing come apart. You go through the motions of deciding. What's actually happening is that you accept what's been framed for you, one small, reasonable-looking consent at a time. The deferral is real. It's just invisible, even to you. Here's how overwhelmed we're really talking about. A controlled experiment out of the Wharton School last year put hundreds of homebuyers in front of Zillow's ordinary interface and asked them one thing. When you click Contact Agent, who are you actually reaching? Nearly all of them, 99.7%, got it wrong. They thought they were contacting the listing agent. They were reaching an agent who'd paid for the lead. Zillow disputes the study. But sit with the number. If people can't tell who answers when they click a button, a moment they'd swear they understood, then the idea that those same people are making an informed decision about data distribution strategy and private versus open marketing isn't serious. The gap between feeling informed and being informed is nearly total. So follow the chain. A large brokerage decides as corporate strategy that walling off listings serves the brokerage. More control of the data, a better shot at the buyer too, more revenue kept in-house. That flows down to the agent, who presents it to you as an option. You, unable to evaluate it, accept what's framed. And the whole thing gets named, at the end, the seller's choice. You're invoked at both ends. As the owner of data you never owned, and the chooser of a strategy you never evaluated. And you're genuinely present at neither. Your name does work, your judgment never did. This isn't a claim that anyone's twirling a mustache. It's simpler and more structural. A model has been built that runs on deference, and the last few years manufactured deference at scale. You don't have to deceive an overwhelmed person or pressure them. You just have to be the one framing the options when they've lost the ability to weigh them. And then call what follows their choice. A real fiduciary does the opposite. The duty isn't to collect the deferral, it's to catch it. To notice you've stopped deciding and started just signing, and to stop the conveyor. Slow down. Lay the options out in plain words, and make sure the choice is real before letting it be made. The whole point of the duty is to protect you precisely when you're too overwhelmed to protect yourself. A strategy that quietly depends on you not understanding has it exactly backwards. Now think about what a fractured market does to the one tool you'd reach for to make sense of it. If listings keep splintering, this brokerage's private network, that portal's walled preview, the other firm's exclusive inventory, then to see the whole market, you'd have to belong to all of it. And nobody does that by hand anymore. You ask a machine. Find me everything for sale near this price. But an AI pointed at a fractured market doesn't return the truth. It returns a jumble. Scraped fragments, stale listings, guesses stitched from whatever it could reach, all delivered in the same confident voice you'd trust for a fact you could verify. Here are the 8 homes currently for sale in Kennett Square under $600,000. It sounds definitive. It isn't. There might be 14, but 4 are hidden in a private network the AI couldn't see. 2 more inside a portal's preview, and one of the 8 it did show sold 3 weeks ago and was never updated. You asked one question, expecting one honest answer, and got a clean, confident list that's quietly wrong in both directions. Missing homes that exist, including one that doesn't. Nothing in that tidy sentence tells you so. And as of early 2026, those answers began carrying ads too. Sponsored placements beside the response, sold through a live auction open to any business. They're labeled, kept separate, and don't change the answer, the companies say. Take them at their word. It doesn't matter. Because the same person who can't tell who answers a button is now sorting the incomplete answer from the paid box beside it, in the one medium they trust because it feels like a neutral authority handing down a fact. And the machine isn't a one-time stop. It's in the stream the whole way through. There's a decent chance an AI is how you found your agent in the first place. It surfaced one name and not another, which means that agent had to do a whole new kind of work just to exist to the machine, to be the answer it gives. And it doesn't stop once you're at the table. You're using it the entire time. To look at homes before the agent sends them. To check whether the price they just explained is right. To second-guess the comp. To evaluate the offer. There's a running second opinion in your pocket through every step of the most important decision of your life. And it doesn't agree with the agent, or with Zillow, or even with the answer it gave you yesterday. So the agent isn't just guiding a client anymore. They're guiding a client who's simultaneously consulting a confident, inconsistent machine at every turn. A machine the agent had to court to be found by, is partly walled out of, and cannot control. And there's a bitter irony in that for the agent. For years, the industry told them, you are the brand. Build your name, your following. Because in the end, the consumer buys the person. So they did. And then the thing that decides whether that brand ever reaches you stopped being your own search and became a machine's answer to it. You can be the most trusted name at 100 kitchen tables and still be the name the machine didn't surface. The agent did exactly what was asked, became the person worth choosing, and woke up to find that being worth choosing and being found had quietly come apart, decided by a layer they don't control and can't see into. One more thing built at the table, and one more thing the players moved out from under them. So let's put the widow back in her chair, because she's where it lands. She asks, maybe types it herself, maybe her daughter does, and the answer comes back clean and confident and incomplete, because part of the market is hidden where the machine can't see it. She doesn't know that. Nothing in the answer says some homes are missing from this list. And sitting right beside it is a sponsored box from the very kind of firm that pulled its listings out of the open market in the first place. Looking in this area? See our exclusive listings. To her, it looks like help. She has no way to know the firm offering the door is part of the reason the rest of the market went dark. The auction is live, the incentive is obvious, and she is precisely the person it works on. Here's the part that should trouble anyone who thinks the agent is the safeguard against this. The agent may be just as blind. If those listings are hidden inside one firm's private network, every agent outside that firm is locked out too, including hers. She can't see what's missing, and neither can the person she hired to protect her. You cannot disclose what you were never allowed to see. The wall doesn't just leave you in the dark. It reaches across the table and puts your advocate in the dark beside you. So what can an honest agent actually do? Not perform a certainty they don't have. The one thing left, and it's not small, is to tell you the truth plainly. That machine cannot be trusted to show you the whole market because it can't see the whole market, and neither can I, and anyone handing you a confident answer is handing you something that may be missing the very home you'd have chosen. In a system engineered to feel seamless and authoritative, the honest agent's job is to be the one voice willing to say the authority is false. Everything else at that table is telling you to relax and trust the screen. The honest agent has to tell you not to. But notice what that does to the two of you. You hear that the picture can't be trusted, and you start to wonder what else can't be, and whether your own agent is keeping something from you. The agent, locked out and unable to prove otherwise, feels the ground shift under the one thing they're supposed to provide: confidence, certainty, trust. And so the two people at that table, the only two who actually make a transaction happen, start to trust the process less and each other less, exactly as the industry walls itself off in search of advantage. There are people in the business sounding the alarm about this. Donnie Sampson, the CEO of Sampson Properties, put it plainly on the Real Estate Insider's Unfiltered podcast. Buyers already don't fully trust that their agent has shown them every available listing, so they go check Zillow. Wall the market off, and a suspicion hardens into a certainty. That's the part the chessboard never sees. Every player upstream, the brokerage, the portal, the firm building the wall, depends entirely on what gets generated at that table. The trust between those two people is the raw material the whole industry is built on top of. And the privatizing, the walling off, the racing to control the data quietly corrodes that trust to gain position. They are spending down the one asset that makes everything above it possible. The pawns hold up the board, and the players, reaching for advantage, are disturbing the very ground the pawns are standing on. So come back to the table one last time. Just the agent and the people we started with. The downsizing couple, the widow, the young buyers. Before anything else happens, before a single form is signed, there's a quieter thing that has to happen first. Trust. I think you're the one who can help us. You understand our goals, you understand our concerns, and your skill and your character tell us you're the one we can rely on. That's the moment the whole thing actually begins. Not the listing, not the search, the trust. And from there they go through it together, all of it. The strain of preparing and selling a home, with a long hunt for the right one. The highs, the lows, the emotion of the largest decision most people ever make. They take the journey side by side, and the relationship is either strengthened or worn down by how they come through it, and by whether that first trust turned out to be warranted. All the while, everything we've described keeps churning above them. The portals, the private listings, the data wars, the velocity, the machine. And the agent, if they're any good, is absorbing most of it so you don't have to. Which means you may never know how much of it touched your own outcome. You may never know whether a different result was even possible, whether the choice you were shown was ever really a choice, whether the homes you saw were the whole market or only the slice someone let you see. You won't know if you were helped or harmed. You'll carry that not knowing quietly for the rest of your life because there's no way to go back and check. That is the real cost of all of this. Not a market inefficiency. A person doing the most important thing they'll do, who will never be certain the ground under it was solid. And the people moving the pieces, the executives, the strategists, the analysts, the loudest voices in the industry. Here's the thing Roosevelt understood and they've forgotten. They are not even the man in the arena. They know neither victory nor defeat because they have never been at that kitchen table. Some have not sat at that table in years, if ever, yet speak as though proximity to the board is the same as proximity to the client. There's a difference. And everyone who has ever sat in that chair knows it. So here is the one thought that ought to sit at the back of the mind of every expert at every podium, every keynote, every panel, every podcast booth holding forth about the MLS and private listings and portals and what's best for the consumer. Most of the people listening know you have never been at the kitchen table. You may be moving the pieces. You may even be one of them. But the credibility was never up there. It was never on the board at all. The credibility is at the table. It always was. It belongs to the two people sitting across from each other, the one trying to make an impossible decision, and the one who took an oath, spoken or not, to get them through it honestly. They are the only ones who were ever truly in the arena. Everyone else is just disturbing the ground they stand on. The players know the board, but the board was never where any of this was decided. It was decided at the kitchen table, the one place they never sat. This piece was written by Vincent of the Sear team at Reel of Pennsylvania. You can read it and the rest of the collected work at thesearteam.com.